Hey guys, Dr. Morse, Fantasy Doctors here. It's Wednesday, the 12th of September. We had a crazy week one. I want to break down some of the injuries that happened in week one and a couple that just popped up over the last couple of hours today that will definitely impact week two. Now, it's about a little past 8 p.m., so I'm going to cover everything offensive and defensive players that have been released so far and the information we have. So there's a lot of injuries. I'll just start at the top and we'll go from here. So, first of all, how did I do fantasy-wise? I like to give my recommendations on who to play. So how did I do? I went 5-0, and I think only one game was within 15 points. DFS, not quite as good. I went a little crazy in week one like most people do. And I did okay, but not as well as I'd like to. But let's hope for a better week, and as things start to shake out, we'll kind of see the trends a little more. So for quarterbacks, obviously the big name is Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers likely suffered an MCL sprain. Now, what is this? This is the ligament that runs up and down on the inner aspect of your knee, and likely he's going to wear a brace. He's in a lot of pain. He's reportedly not even taking anti-inflammatories or pain medicines because he doesn't like how he feels, but which is fine. The problem is, if this is a mild grade 1, he's going to be in some pain. I think he's going to return. I think he will likely play this week, but I think he's going to struggle, not because of the knee, although that won't help, because he struggles versus the Vikings, and I'll leave it at that. If we find out there's more to it than this injury, I'll let you know more. If you want to know more about it, I did a separate video on him and a couple of the other guys. Dak Prescott is dealing with an ankle injury that we don't know much about. And basically, that's all we know. And his offensive line is banged up, so definitely I would avoid Dak this week if you didn't plan on it already. So Big Ben is dealing with an elbow injury, and my assumption is this is his throwing elbow because they wouldn't really comment on it much if it was his non-throwing elbow. Now, this is obviously concerning to me because any elbow injury in a throwing athlete is concerning, especially in one who's going to throw 20, 30, 40, maybe 50 times like Luck last week. And he's at home, so this definitely impacts Juju. This impacts Antonio Brown. This impacts a ton of people. I don't think he's going to practice most of the week so that they can preserve it. I don't really know what to make of it. If you have Juju, if you have AB, if you have Connie, you're going to start him anyway. So it is what it is. I personally might throw Big Ben in a couple leagues for GPPs, but that's about it. Titans Marcus Mariota, also an elbow injury, but he was spotted. Checking my Red Sox game. He was spotted throwing today in practice, so as far as I'm concerned, he's good. His supporting staff, on the other hand, is not. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Lions, Matthew Stafford looked awful, but he actually suffered a shin injury. I thought it sounds like he'll be okay. Colts, Andrew Luck actually surprised me in week one. He got much better as the day went on. He ended up pulling in a half-decent day. We came to find out that he actually suffered a snowboarding injury back in 2016, which may have contributed to why he missed 2017, either directly or indirectly. But I think he's good to go for week two, and he's definitely a potential top guy this week. Carson Wentz is still not cleared for contact. That means Nick Foles will start in week two, even though he played awfully in week one. They're in Tampa facing the Bucs. And Deshaun Watson looked like he favored his leg a little bit at the end of the game, but nothing has popped up on the injury report, so we're just going to assume it's okay. As far as him, I think he has a good chance to bounce back. If you want to know more about his injury and everything, check out my podcast from the preseason about him. But I think he has a great chance to bounce back, but I'm not 100% sold on him yet. I'm going to give him a couple more weeks. All right, so that's it for the quarterbacks. Running backs. The big name is obviously Leonard Fournette. He has a hamstring injury, which color me surprised. He has a notorious history for lower leg extremity injuries. And I am concerned enough to not start him this week, even in games that I have him, things that I have him. In DFS, I'm 100% fading him. Unless you don't have another option, you kind of have to start him. He may play this week, but he's at super high risk for re-injury. I'll leave it at that. He won't be probably healthy for at least a couple weeks at the minimum. It takes time for these things to heal, and hamstring injuries re-injure like no other. Devonta Freeman has a banged-up knee. He didn't practice today. I don't know much more about it than that. We know he has some significant ligament issues in the past, but they haven't really released any more. Rex Burkhead popped up on the injury report today saying that he suffered a concussion on Sunday. We did not know that until today. There's probably about a 50% chance he plays on Sunday, only because about 70 to 80% of sports-related concussions resolve within 10, sometimes I'll say 7 to 14 days. It's usually closer to 10 to 14 days. But the problem is it's hard to get rid of these symptoms quickly. I did a quick video on him separately if you want to check that out, if you want to hear a little more. Wouldn't start him this week because he's at significant risk to re-concuss as well. Marlon Mack sounds like he might be good to go. He's dealing with a hamstring injury, so high risk of re-injury. Darren Sproles also has a hamstring injury, and he's definitely a little older than most of the other running backs, so he's going to struggle to heal faster, but we'll see. He's more of a scat back and change of pace back anyway. Unfortunately, Patriots' Jeremy Hill tore his ACL. We'll expect a full recovery in 9 to 11 months, but that really depletes their depth. Ravens' Kenneth Dixon apparently suffered a significant knee injury, and he was placed on IR. So it's really they're getting a little thin too. Buck Allen sounds like he's the backup for Collins now. Marshawn Lynch is dealing with both a groin and shoulder injury. So we'll see how he looked great the other night for a couple plays, and then you didn't see him the rest of the game. My suspicion is when he was carrying all 10 Rams, he re-aggravated his groin injury and maybe suffered the shoulder injury at the same time. Steelers, Le'Veon Bell. Who? Where are you? You're losing money left and right, but this is your body, so be it. James Conner looked fantastic, even better in week 2 possibly. Rock and roll. Saquon Barkley did not re-injure himself in week 1. Great news. Start him this week. LeGarrette Blount looked like he tweaked his knee really funny in a weird position, but it's actually a shoulder injury, but I think he'll be fine. More of a touchdown-dependent guy. All right, wide receivers. Doug Baldwin, the big injury of the week. He suffered a grade 2 MCL sprain, which is likely more severe than Aaron Rodgers, even though we don't know how bad Rodgers is. The issue is this is on a wide receiver who needs to cut often, and you have a lot of difficulty cutting with an MCL sprain. And he's likely going to need at least 3 weeks, maybe closer to 6, to feel back to 100%. And this is the opposite knee that he had issues with in the preseason. So he's banged up, to say the least. DeAndre Hopkins popped up on the injury report today with a foot injury. Sounds minor, though. The one I'm concerned about is Packers' Devontae Adams, who I'm really high on this year. He has a shoulder injury. It could be an AC joint. It could be a rotator cuff. It could be a labrum. We don't know because they haven't told us any more. But I'm a little concerned. Add in the fact that Rodgers is banged up, and it may be a full fade for me this week in him, depending on my depth and how he's feeling. Saints' Michael Thomas, who went bananas last week, and likely will do it again, is just a little under the weather with some sickness, but he should be fine. Titans' Corey Davis is probably my most concerning injury from a, whoa, where did this come from thing. He tweaked his hamstring. This is big red warning flags. This is the injury he tweaked last year that caused him to miss basically the entire season. I did a small video on this at outside of this if you want to check it out. Super concerned. I really like him this year. Tons of talent, but man, he can't stay healthy. Hopefully this is super mild. Give him a couple weeks and he'll be back, but it's unfortunate. Browns' Jarvis Landry has a thigh injury, sounds mild. Browns' Josh Gordon was supposed to be limited to 20 snaps with a hamstring injury. He played 69 snaps, or 78% of the Browns snaps that day. He only got 3 targets, but he did score a touchdown. He has potential to go off this week against the Saints. Bucks' Deshaun Jackson had a monster game with Fitzmagic throwing to him and everybody else. But not only did he suffer a concussion, which is concerning, but also a shoulder injury. I would be very surprised if he plays this week. Chris Godwin is a great play in spite of him. The 49ers' Marquise Goodwin suffered a quad contusion / strain. Sometimes we need to drain these if there's a lot of blood flow that shoots into the quad to make it really tight. There's a possibility he may be able to go this week. I do like them this week. I believe they're at home, but he kind of burned me a little bit last week, but it is what it is. Saints' Ted Ginn, who caught a nice touchdown. He has a knee injury. We don't know how severe it is. Giants' Sterling Shepard has a back injury. These can be concerning and annoying, so keep your eye on that. OBJ should be in for a monster week this week. Eagles' Alshon Jeffrey is not ready to return. I'll give him a couple more weeks. Will Fuller did not play last week with a hamstring. Still at very high risk to re-injure it, but I think he may be able to go this week. Potentially sneaky matchup, but I would not play him in cash games. I would play him more as a GPP flyer or like a flex guy if you can. I would not depend on him just in case he re-injures it. Redskins' Trey Quinn has a very serious high ankle sprain, and he was placed on IR, I believe. He's out probably 6 weeks anyway. Devontae Parker is still banged up with a fractured finger. He's out a couple more weeks, and Stills is the number one there anyway. Start him even in cash leagues. Antonio Brown, no re-injury, which is great news for his quad. Rams kick returner / wide receiver Farrell Cooper, very severe ankle injury, and he is placed on IR. All right, tight ends. Delaney Walker suffered a fracture dislocation. Ugly, gruesome injury. I knew it right away. This is the same injury that Gordon Hayward suffered. His season is over. He needs surgery. I did a separate video on him if you want to check it out for more details. Panthers' Greg Olsen also suffered a re-injury to his fractured foot from last year. He suffered what we call a Jones fracture, which is a very significant fracture because of the location of the fracture in the 5th metatarsal bone. It does not get good blood supply. It does not heal, hence the reason why you usually have to put a screw in it, and you can refracture it, which is likely what he did, even though we don't know the specifics. He's likely out for the rest of the year. He's going to try to rehab it, but these don't rehab well. He will likely have to have the screw replaced, or pulled, and then replaced. Evan Ingram did not have the best week last week. I expect a decrease in targets, secondary to just so many different options. And somebody no, they didn't. That was a thing from last night. Jags defense bottled them up. Maybe a little bit better this week. George Kittle looked very good. Got a ton of targets. Pick him up if you have not already. You should have. Jaguars, Austin Seferian-Jenkins has a core muscle injury. It would be a little banged up, but I think he's still a tight end too. Falcons, Austin Hooper popped up in the injury report today with a knee injury. I don't know if he's good for week 2 because we don't know much about it. Okay, now we're talking about defensive and offensive linemen and players. Cowboys, Randy Gregory is suffered a concussion. Browns, Emmanuel Ogbah, defensive end, is out with an ankle injury. He has a history of a broken foot in 2017. JPP for the Bucks has a knee injury. He described it as quote unquote jacked up. Great phrase. Steelers cornerback Joe Hayden has a grade 1 hamstring strain. I love when they give me the grades. He will likely be out 1 to 3 weeks. If he plays this week, I'd be very concerned. He's going to suffer a re-injury. Bucks Vernon Hargraves suffered apparently very significant torn labrum in his shoulder. This is similar to what Andrew Luck suffered, without any more details that we know. He is ruled out for the rest of the year after getting a second opinion from Dr. James Andrews up in Northwest Florida. Texans Kevin Johnson suffered a apparently very severe concussion. His second in 3 weeks, very bad sign. He was placed on IR. Trey Waynes, of DB for the Vikings, banged up with a knee. We don't know much more about that. 49ers linebacker Brock Coyle went to the IR with a concussion. Very bad news, obviously, if you're already putting someone on a concussion, on IR with a concussion 2 days after. Chargers Joey Bosa, beast, unfortunately banged up with a potential serious foot injury. Could be a simple sprain, could be a Liz Frank, which scares me just saying it. The Chargers defense isn't quite the same without him, and I don't know when he'll be back, unfortunately. Bills DL Shaq Lawson, hamstring injury. Panthers guard Trey Turner, concussion. Steelers right guard David DeCastro, broken hand, maybe surgery. He will likely need or play with a cast. San Francisco 49ers lost 2 of their guards. Josh Garnett with a dislocated toe. He's week to week. And Mike Person with a foot strain. We're almost at the end, guys. Texans right tackle Shantrell Henderson fractured his ankle and is done for the season. My partner in crime, Dr. Salim Parek, did a video on that if you want to check that out. Titans tackle Taylor Lewin, I believe is how it's pronounced, suffered a concussion. He may or may not play this week. We will see. Panthers tackle Darrell Williams, knee injury, undergoing surgery. He is going to IR. Colts tackle Jamarcus Webb. He played 81 of 82 snaps this week, so very important player, or at least to start off the season. Hamstring injury, placed on IR. Saints tackle Andres Pete had a quad injury. He is limited. Cardinals tackle Andre Smith, elbow injury, undergoing MRI. Joe Barksdale, the tackle for the Chargers, has a right knee injury. The Vikings tackle Aviante Collins is on IR with an elbow injury. And defensive tackle for the Raiders, Justin Ellis, is week to week with a foot strain. Whew, that's a lot of injuries. And it's only Wednesday. Good luck this week. If you have a specific injury question, you want me to elaborate on something, feel free to shoot me an email through my website, www.drjessemorse.com. I filled in some information in the stuff underneath that can give you some more input. Check out our website, thefantasydoctors.com. We have a great injury tracker that has a lot of this stuff. We'll keep it updated constantly. I would love to hear your thoughts, so leave me a comment or subscribe and give me some a 5-star rating if you appreciate it. Also, check out my other podcast, the Fantasy Doctors Podcast, as well. And we will see you next week for the same version of this. Take care, guys.